And Ed in San Diego, as you can see, that's downtown. And you see where those green lights are on that building over there? That is actually the roof of the Westin Hotel. And that's just down the street from where I am right now. And to my right of that green those green lights is Seaport Village, and that's where I live, right there. Okay, I've got all these AI note takings going on, so we're covered. And welcome again to a global TV talk show and global business news TV network. So this is show number 971. I looked that up because I've lost my mind this morning. I couldn't remember what number we were at. And this is the number of productions that I've been fortunate to develop, broadcast, produce, distribute, and basically finance. And it's really an honor for me to be able to sit here with you guys and Marty and talk to the audience out there, which will be in Japan and Singapore and Sydney, as well as across the US and Europe and Latin America and Canada. Not all at once, it's on a distributed basis as a result of the distribution networks that I've been able to establish through LinkedIn and YouTube and some of the other channels that we all know about, and through our owned and operated globalbusinessnews.net, which is connected across corporations worldwide, mainly through HR. My goal for 25, one of my goals, is to promote the idea of changing the name away from HR to talent care, TC, which would embody perfectly what you were talking about this morning, and what we can talk about now in terms of feedback, feed forward. Let's begin by talking about the difference between feed forward and feedback, and then we'll get into giving. And the concept that I have is to talk about talent care is a huge umbrella under which could be HR still, it could be different things, of course, comp and ben and training and development, learning and development and assessment, whatever that means. Ken, you'll be an expert at that. And about, well, I'll use a military thing, mission control. So, what's the job? What do we have to achieve here? And Ron, I can't think of anybody better to lead that. So, welcome, Ron and Marty Cooper.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to interact with you, Ken, and your vast audience. And what we'll do today is just give you a few thoughts of stimulating thinking, and hopefully it will generate conversation to go beyond this.
Well, thank you very much. So, Marty, would you like to self intro and just give us like 30 seconds about what your take is on this topic?
Feedback.
Feedback. I like feedback because I think you learn a lot from that feedback if you take it in a accepting way.
That's a key, isn't it, Ken?
Well, if you
Y-
take it in an accepting way, absolutely. And if it's given in an accepting way, if you get feedback and say, you just did a terrible job, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Can't you even do that's feedback, but that's not, it has to be given in a caring and productive way. Again, from the standpoint of helping people grow and learn from it, because we all need feedback. And just as you said, Marty, to learn and to grow. If I'm out on the archery range and I'm shooting arrows, and I don't know if I'm hitting the target or not, I'm not going to learn anything. Feedback is, hey, you know, you had a couple of bullseyes, you had a couple here, you put a couple in the woods. Here's what happened. So feedback, yeah, it's got to be accepted in a, if you will, an accepting way, so you can learn from it. It has to be given fairly and equitably and factually and in a really more productive way as well. We've seen feedback that's provided that is really destructive and doesn't meet the goal of learning at all. It actually inhibits it.
Ron, I'd like to ask you a question. Now, audience, this is not rehearsed and it's not scripted. And we do this at some risk, of course, but we stay on track. We try to. So, mission control. Now, I was reading your LinkedIn, and as I scrolled down your page, your LinkedIn profile talked about your time in the military, in I guess in the Navy, and you were the write up talked about the technicality of what you were doing, and it made it sound really high risk, high value. And so, giving feedback within a military structure, um, that's almost like a command order, rather. Or am I wrong? Am I old fashioned in my interpretation?
No, it's not old fashioned, Ed. And let me just take a half step back. I am Air Force, not Navy. We work together. But
Thank you.
let's just say that in the military, one of the principal reasons we exist is to deter aggression. We're not ones who want to always go out and create war and dissension. No, we want to, through the training we have, the armament we have, and the will of our nation, if you provoke me to do so, I will use our military. And so, with that in mind, we hope the adversary, those who might think that, well, maybe we should, and you say, no, these people have the will, the might, and they may just use this power. Let's not. That is the essence of deterrence. Now, there is a discipline, Ed, and I think that's one of the things that you're referring to. There is a discipline in the military. You must have a very disciplined mindset too, and we do follow orders. We do have a ranked structure, and there are those ahead of us that give us orders, and we are obligated to follow those orders unless they're immoral, unethical, illegal, anything like that. But in the context of feedback, we want to nurture, we want to bring up, we want to train those to follow us where we are. When we hopefully we will progress, but at some point we're going to transition out of the military, so we're always training people to take over our position. So we want to empower those people, but not in a dictatorial way, as we'll be speaking in the context of feedback, that we want, hopefully, what we say to nurture and empower and help people grow.
Thank you very much for that. So now let's talk about feed forward. Ken, you brought that up this morning, and just uh, define feed forward feedback.
Sure. And I'll put it in a framework that Ron will relate to. From 30,000 feet, feedback feedback is really focused on an individual's past performance, on how things went in terms of meeting goals, meeting benchmarks, hitting the other agreed upon criteria. Notice it's agreed upon, not a bunch of goals dumped on somebody. Hitting the agreed upon benchmarks along the way and meeting the goals. That's feedback. Feedback is essentially looking back at performance. Feed forward, which should accompany feedback, is designed to help the individual learn and grow and develop from there. What do we do about this? So it's not just, here's a bunch of information about your past. It's factually based, provided professionally, clear and all, but there's more to it. What do I do with all this? Feed forward is the answer to that. Feed forward is, okay, let's talk about possible ways to build up some skills, abilities, and overall competencies in the areas where the performance was a little bit off the mark. And so feed forward can include training on the spot. It can be, in quotes, upskilling from the manager right on site. It can be suggested training, suggested educational programs, suggestional readings, suggestive podcasts, all along the way to help the individual build the skills, help the individual. I know this is an important word that Ron uses, help the individual grow. So it's not just feedback on what you did. Here's how you improve. And it's not just randomly thrown. It's focused on the individual. It's essentially tailored to that person in terms of motivations, drives, interests, career path. So it's that forward look, looking down the road. That's feed forward. Looking back at what happened in the past is our feedback. So that's kind of the differentiation in those two terms today.
Thank you. Ron?
Oh, I'm all about the feedback, yes, and I think it can be very healthy to take a rearward look, particularly as we're nearing the year end. Let's look back at how well we did, and let's review whatever goals and so forth we had. Did we make those goals? And we can self-assess, but then others can help us to take a rearward look. We're not focused always on the past, but we're reviewing the past in the context of feedback so we can look forward, feed forward. What can we do to improve on 2025 in this case, or whatever our future outlook is? So we're building on the past. We're always moving forward, or to use another term, we're failing forward. If we did not accomplish whatever we had our sights set on, whatever directives I was given, how can I improve to do better? Because I hope my attitude is that I want to do better. I want to support Ed, you and Ken and Marty. I want to do what I can to do that, but a lot of whether I do that or not is partly my mindset, but then it's also the leadership of how well we interface with and interact with those who are above us.
So, mission in a business sense, but of course, with thinking of Tom Cruise. So, mission. What's the mission? Defining the mission, and then do you, when you coach companies, people, do you break down that mission into this team is going to be doing this, and here's the deadline, and so on, into groups? There has to be a leader. Let's say you're the leader, okay, and then you delegate the chores or the timeline and expectations, and then get out of the way, I guess, and let them do it, and then manage all of that. Am I on target?
No, you're on target, Ed. That's exactly what we do as we work with businesses. And the CEO or the person in charge, whatever the title is responsible for developing a culture. And with that culture, through HR, perhaps we want to bring in the right people. We want to ensure that people are trained to do their job. But then, in terms of mission, every company possibly has a mission statement, or they may call it strategic objectives. Those objectives are possibly goals that are 5-10 years ahead. And I would certainly hope that a company's mission vision is 5-10 years in advance. And then the people we bring on are the ones who are best equipped to support that mission, vision, strategic objectives. And so we want to be very careful in the context of bringing on talent management. We want to bring on the right people with the right mindset. And I frequently and almost always will hire people based on values. I want to make certain your values and those of the company align. In the context of interview, I help those who are petitioning, or interviewing for a position. I help them interview the company. I think they should interview the company to make sure there is a good match. And so I have the right, if I'm interviewing for your company, Ed, to say, you know, I just don't think I'm the best fit for you, Ed. And I would give you my feedback on that based on what I'm learning from you. If my values substantially differ from yours, I would tell you that, even though maybe working for your company would be a good paycheck, I'm not necessarily going to leave your workplace fulfilled, and that's going to have some adverse impacts on home. So a lot more that can be discussed on that, but that is my view of a lot on the mission. And or say I use frequently the term strategic objectives of a company.
Okay. Pardon me. I have to take notes. Objectives. Okay. Uh, Values. You used the word several times. So the equation: my values, your values.
Mhm.
Okay. So what's a value in this regard?
Well, I'll tell you, Ed, that the values may have different definitions on different people, but one of the things that we help companies work with companies to do is create harmony within the workplace, harmony at home, and that harmony is one of the principles we work with. Is the harmony? What I mean by that is we are willing to work together. Ed, one of my values is I will never attempt to denigrate you on social media or in any way that I talk. That is a value that I will not, and I will pledge to you, I will not denigrate you. And if I have anything, let's say negative in the context of feedback about you and observation, I will first discuss that with you. You had a show very recently talking about having a psychologically safe workspace. Do I feel comfortable I can come to you and share an observation with you without jeopardizing my job, my position? But that's one of the values. That's in values and culture in this context are pretty much synonymous. That trust. That's one of those values. We've got to be able to trust each other. We've got to be able to communicate well. Ken talked about that earlier today. And I will never embezzle money from you. Never. That's you can count on me. My word is my bond. If I say I will do something, I will do it. And so those are just some of the values that I ascribe to, Ed, and I want to bring people on to whose values align with mine.
That's very strong and very clear. Ken?
Yeah, it certainly values as deeply held beliefs about what's right and wrong and good and bad, and just they're quite profound. Those deeply held values end up translating into something more tangible called our beliefs, which ultimately come into our behaviors and our actions. And I absolutely agree. When I think about it from the hiring standpoint, what comes right back to me is the right stuff, and what it took in those days, putting together that team, to find people who have the shared values, as well as energy, drive, commitment, focus, all of those key factors that are reflections of their values. And I also like to look at, along with, as you said, mission and strategic objectives and goals, the whole concept of expectations that we like to see in an organization. If we expect our employees to succeed, that affects our behavior, it affects how we treat them, and it also affects their behaviors. If we have negative expectations about the performance of our employees, no matter what we've agreed upon, I just don't think they're going to make it. The odds are they're not going to make it. They are going to fail. Our expectations are in many respects a self-fulfilling prophecy. So to be aware of that, what do I really expect in this situation, of this team, of this individual? Because that is going to impact the ultimate outcome. So if we're looking at objectives and thinking, I really don't think we're going to meet them, this is way out, that's going to be understood and reflected all the way out to every employee that's working with you and with your team on that. So really to have an expectation of positivity. I mean, there's literally studies that show how expectations positively as well as negatively impact employee performance. We want to be aware of that, to ask ourselves, what do we really expect out of this situation? Because that's going to have a key impact on what the ultimate outcome really ends up being.
Yeah, and Ed, I will add on to that just that I use it in just slightly different wording. You almost always find whatever you're looking for. You look for a positive in people, you will find it, and conversely. But it is a mindset. And if we're on the positive side of a mindset, people gravitate to that, and people almost always perform to that.
Uh, So you don't teach it, you just expect it.
I
Or
would
you
say,
watch for it.
well, in the context that some things are caught more than taught. And so there are some behaviors that are caught more than they're taught.
Ken?
I like that, some are caught, some are taught, and the rest of us are fraud or something like that. We'll have to work on that one. But absolutely. But again, it's going to be also reflected in our behavior. Our employees are going to pick up if we have doubts about a project, doubts about them, no matter how we couch it, phrase it, and all. If we just have that undercurrent of concern, lack of confidence in them, in a situation, in a project, they're gonna pick up on it, and it'll show in our behavior, and then it's gonna show in theirs. And then when things don't go all that well, you'll see it because the employees don't really care because they'll know, well, we never shot at this anyhow, no matter what was said. So they'll pick up on it and they'll fulfill it, and it will not be a positive outcome.
So let's talk about talent care, Ron. The recruitment of talent, recruitment, acquisition, assessment, learning and development, or learning and training, and then an assignment based on all that. And then uh, coaching, managing to success, hopefully, and then a promotion or next project, sort of a timeline thing. Did I leave anything out that at
No,
this time, the second I'm asking you?
no, I'll tell you, Ed, what I do and what I would go to my HR people. Here's how I would work this. If I'm the, let's say, program manager, just use that term, and I need a team to accomplish some goal. First off, I need to know who I am, what my strengths are and weaknesses, gaps, whatever term you use. But I want to bring in people who complement me. In this instance, I I will frequently, my personality and disposition is such that I can make decisions somewhat quickly. My mindset is I don't necessarily need committees and calendars to make decisions, but I may want a definite Ed Cohen personality who is very detail oriented, who would have the freedom to tell me, Ron, don't go so quick in making a decision. Did you consider? And I need to respect you enough, Ed, that you are a detail oriented kind of person that you're going to give factors to me that maybe I had not considered. And then, excuse me, Ken is the kind of person who is a very relational kind of person. I am a very task oriented person where Marty and Ken are very people oriented, relational oriented people. They can help me rather than going right to the bottom line is and not say, well, how's your day going? They will help remind me that I need to ask how various people's days are going. And so I need to surround myself with the right people, but knowing who I am such that when I have the team of X number of people, they complement me and we work well together. And so in the context of talent management, I'm looking for those people with that type of talent that bring those strengths to me with the foundational aspect of being values oriented people.
So by asking the question, "How's your day going?" It's not a throwaway line. It's you're not a dictator. You don't want to be perceived as a dictator, so you get them involved by through communication. relational, is I think what you said.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying, Ed. And my personality is such that I hope to be very resolved, very determined with decisions I make. But I know people like Marty and perhaps Ken may think that, well, gosh, I'm not as relational as they would like for me to be. They want me to ask, well, how's your day going? They want me to, because that way I demonstrate I care, but yet I want for them to know that when I've made a decision, I have considered all the facts and factors, them personally, because I know them and their feelings. I have made a very conscious decision. I'm going forward with a resolve, but I want for them to know that that resolve includes and has their concerns, their feelings, their well-being up front. And I have considered all of that, but I need to make a decision. And so that's a lot said in what I just said, Ed, but that's what a good leader is all about.
Ken?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Leadership is a continuum, and it can vary based on the situation. There certainly are times to be very firm, strong, and direct, and some leaders apply that type of style in a lot of situations. But at the same time, they still understand what needs to be done. They understand the timing, the priorities, the deadlines, the resources that are involved. And there can be some variance in their leadership style, which is a positive. There's nothing wrong with being a strong and firm and direct leader. It's also helpful on various projects to lighten the reins a bit and to let the employees have more input, more discretion, more time to work on it on their own. But that depends on the project itself. And that's where the leader can be a resource in providing some guidance, some information, some structure as needed. The problem is that people confuse firm, strong leadership with bullying, and they're completely different. Being a strong, firm leader, being decisive, being on top of the facts of what's going on, that's fine. But when that comes into abusing employees and pushing them around and degrading them and berating them, and people are like, oh, that's what a strong leader does. No, that's a weak leader. That is not effective, strong leadership. That's really off the chart. But again, there are going to be times when a leader does need to be strong, firm, and direct, and still fair, ethical, above board, honest, interested in the employees. There'll be other times when perhaps the project is not as high a priority, or the deadlines are a little looser, or the resources involved are a little lighter, where the employees can have a lot more discretion. So good leaders vary their leadership style. And that's just an important aspect of it, provided that it stays within, and we've talked about the values of the company, being fair, honest, open, ethical, treating people with respect and trust, all of within that context. And you don't hear bullying in there, anything related to bullying or abusing employees at all. And my father was a great leader. He was terrific in his business. And his concept was that in terms of decision making, for all of us, like if you don't make a decision, time's going to make it. I say, what do you mean, Dad? Well, let's say you're thinking about a decision, you're not sure. I think I will, I'm not sure. And the clock is ticking. Suddenly you were thinking about taking the 9 o'clock flight, but maybe you'll take the noon. Suddenly 9 o'clock goes by. You haven't made the decision. Time made it for you. So he was focused on let's get the decision made, whether it's on your own with input from other key participants, but let's not let time make decisions for you. Make the decisions yourself. That always resonated. So again, in terms of one best leadership style, there isn't one. Tell me about the situation. We can talk about the leadership style.
So much to learn. Wow.
I just want to, I want to say that it's very important to me when you have a team, you need to know their personality and their thinking style, so that you may have 4 different personalities within a team. But if you know their thinking style and their personalities, their strengths and weaknesses, they can all work better together.
Absolutely. Absolutely excellent point. We don't want to be treating all employees as if they're interchangeable. They do bring different motivations, drives, interests, skills, and abilities. And as leaders, we want to understand that. And that can help us in coaching, guiding them. It'll help us certainly in providing there's that word, feed forward as we go down the road based on their performance. So no question about it. The key point here is certainly to have a good deal of understanding and awareness of your employees as individuals and to really respect those differences.
And
Ken,
Ed, I'll add to that very briefly that based on personality, the way I talk to different people on my team is going to be different. Some people want a quick, just get to the bottom line, whereas some other people want just a smoother. Well, let's rather than take only 3 seconds to tell me what you're doing, it's okay to take 27 seconds, and let's but take the time to relate to me. But it's you need to learn personalities and how to communicate with people.
that's exactly not those words, but that's exactly what I was just thinking during the last interchange about how, and Ken, uh, uh, how would you recommend a leader tell the team that I think it's time for us to get to know each other better? And so I, as a CEO, let's just say, will learn how to communicate.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's something I would tell the team so much as in my behavior, keep the door open, meet with them formally and informally. We talked a little bit about continuous feedback every week, have a regular meeting, but to drop in, to talk, whether it's on the virtual coffee bar or at the workplace, but to show it in my behavior. It's a lot of managers will say, we need to work as a team. I want to know about all of you. But you really don't. I don't have time and I'm too busy and I'm focused more on myself than on you, as opposed to just through our behavior, opening up those kinds of doors and letting your team members see that it is safe to talk to you, that they can voice their honest opinions, they can voice criticism, they can voice dissatisfaction, that we have an open environment. Doesn't mean every single point that they bring out is going to be jumped on, but let's have a dialogue and let's see ways that we can come up with joint solutions to deal with issues and problems. It's going to be, in my opinion, more on our behavior than really what we say to them. It's going to be shown by our actions.
Ron, do you want to?
I see Marty. He's leaning forward. Come on in.
Well, yeah, I will say, and many companies have offsite retreats for that very reason. Let's get away from the workplace, and then at the offsite retreat, and as a leader, you don't necessarily say, "Well, we're not interacting as well as we need to," and so forth, because that could be construed as something negative. But rather, that we're not interacting as well as we could. So what I'm going to do is devise some exercises, some games, let's call it. And for the first little bit of that, some people may think, oh my gosh, why are we doing this junk? But the good leader knows we are through this, whatever exercise is, we are going to interact with each other. And at the end of the day, it could be the end of a 4, 6, 8-hour day. You think, oh my goodness, I had no idea that I would get to know Marty, Ken, Ed as well as I did. We could have never done this in the office space. But having been offsite, having gone through what we did, we got to learn each other very well. And through that exercise, we now can function much better together. That's just some of those things we've got to know. And for me, it has a lot to do with metrics. How do I measure how well we interact with each other?
And this all goes to giving feedback.
It is.
Right. Do you want to put your slides up?
Sure. And can you see that, or do I need to?
I think you got to push a button, but I don't know which
Yep,
one.
it's that's the sharing part, I think. Yep, share.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Good.
Let's see. Does that get the slides up?
It's
Yeah.
now it is giving feedback. Yeah.
Great. Giving feedback, just very briefly, some thought stimulators that as we are working with people, that some people will ask, well, is the feedback you're giving solicited or unsolicited? If if it's unsolicited, don't bother. It's not going to be received well and so forth. And, that may make a difference in the receptivity of what you say. But I would say generally, if maybe you could ask the question, can I just share with you an observation? And if it's in the context of unsolicited, they're going to give you some sort of an answer, yes, no. And if it's yes, you can share with me an observation. Okay, I've got the right to, and then we move forward. Feedback versus feed forward. We've talked about that, and give Ken Lloyd credit for the word feed forward. Feedback versus advice. Let me just discuss very briefly what I'm saying about that. Feedback, by its definition, as we've discussed here, is a rearward look. And sometimes feedback connotes, with some people, not all, but how can you improve? Or in other words, there's some aspect that connotes a little bit of negativity. And hey, how can I improve? Well, constructive feedback. There's going to be something negative in that. You could do better, something. But advice sometimes has the connotation that if I'm seeking your advice, I'm also seeking what I know to be your wisdom, and I know I can rely on that. I trust you. That's one of the values we discussed. I can trust you. Therefore, I am totally receptive of your advice. But now the tonality. For everyone who has a spouse, a significant other, I will bet you have heard sometime, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And so the feedback, the advice, whatever it is we say can be exactly right. But if it's not said with the right tone, it can have a very negative effect. And here we are with personalities, that I'm a very domineering, directive, I'm a type A type person. And if I don't tone myself down, it can come across as, well, gosh, man, this guy's just gruff and obnoxious and so forth. And so I've got to be very aware of how I can come across with some people. And so if I'm a good leader and I care about other people, I will know their personality, I will know their disposition, and I will choose to adapt to them. And so for the person who says, come on, man, get right to the bottom line, I'll know just right away. I don't need to put a bunch of what I call frou-frou in it, just go right to the bottom line. But when I'm working with the Martys of the world and those who are focused on numbers and data, I want to be very certain that I incorporate them and I adapt to them. But that's my choice. But one thing that Ken said, people may forget what you said, but they will almost always remember how you made them feel. That's tone. And do I respect the people with whom I am leading? They will know it. They may not feel comfortable telling me if they don't feel that way, but people will almost always remember how you made them feel. And it's tone. And you can, in fact, I believe, speak with a very confident resolve that people know that, yep, Ron has made a decision and he's going to stick by it because he has assessed all of the applicable facts and factors involved in making a decision. But I'm not devoid of Marty, Ken, and Ed in making that decision. I know exactly how this decision will affect or impact you. And so if you're affected in a negative way, I want to come to you and tell you that you may have a negative impact with this, but I want you to know exactly why I made the decision I did. But those are the kind of things that people will know whether you genuinely care about them or whether they are merely a time card puncher. Ed, there's a lot more things I can spend a lot more time talking about, but I've done the best I can to incorporate Ken's wisdom in the feedback and feed forward, while also recognizing that I've got 56 years of feedback and feed forward sitting right beside me.
That's terrific. I'm speechless, actually. Oh, this is great. Yeah, I'm always reminded about how my tone is out of place.
No, I wouldn't say it's out of, your tone is out of place, Ed. We're always correcting. We're always looking for, well, we'll call it self-assessing, feedback. It's all, to me, in this context, it's all the same. And now the mindset is, am I going to get better from what I have learned? Am I going to fail forward? And if the Martys of the world tell me, man, you got to moderate your tone, well, that's what I choose to do. Hopefully I make the correct choice with that, but ultimately it's my choice. And in the context of negative relations, a topic we can talk about much later is boundaries, that you will never make me feel bad. And I have boundaries that, if you're going to continue that way, I'll have to put you lower on my priority list for how much time I choose to spend with you, those kind of things.
Thank you. Ken, I welcome your closing comments.
Oh, obviously, Ron, this was excellent. I mean, to be able to come in with so few bullet points and packed with so much information is great. And I really like the concept of how do people feel as a result of whatever information you provided to them, that they're going to remember. And you're right, it's interesting. There's also studies that show that companies think, well, we need to give better and better prizes for recognition and more expensive stuff, without realizing that it's really the recognition being brought out and given the attention and thanks and appreciation that really resonates with the people more than the trinket or whatever physical item they're handed. That's fine, but it's that whole psychological side, going right back to what you said. How did it make him feel? Gosh, I felt so good when X was brought out, when they said this, when they sent out this announcement. And totally agreed with tonality. It makes all the difference in the world. I mean, I can say, Ron, I think you did a good job today. Or I can say, Ron, I think you did a good job today. I mean, look at the same words, same language, same everything, same sentence, same punctuation, but just the tonality makes it completely different. And by the way, I think you did a good job today. I think it was great. I think it was an excellent presentation.
Ken, that's so right on target. And some people may think, "Oh gosh, man, that's just a bunch of frou-frou stuff." Come on, we're here to have a mission, and et cetera, and so on. And come on, just get with it, people. And yeah, you may get obedience for a short duration, but it's not going to be a long duration. And so you've got to, hopefully, leaders who are listening to this have a long-term mentality and mindset. If you want people to stay with you and be totally fulfilled, you've got to know exactly who they are.
Thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. This has been an education, and please come back. Thank you.
Thanks to you, and Ron and Marty, thank you as well. It's just great listening to you and interacting with you today. Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful picture. Yeah. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Ken, Ed. It's great to be with you.
Right back at you. Be well.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.